The rain poured down relentlessly as Marcus Grayson, a self-made millionaire, stepped out of his office and slid into the back seat of his sleek, black luxury car. He sighed, another long day behind him. His wife, Evelyn, lay sick at home, the illness worsening by the day. Doctors could offer only temporary relief, and Marcus was drowning in a sea of helplessness. He had all the wealth in the world, but none seemed to matter anymore. Marcus noticed something unusual as the car pulled up to the entrance of his sprawling mansion. The passenger side door was slightly ajar, and there was movement inside. Alarmed, he stepped out, expecting a break-in, but what he found shook him. Curled up on the leather seats was a small, frail figure, a girl no older than 8 or 9, shivering in her tattered clothes, asleep in his car. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" he demanded, his voice a mix of confusion and anger. The little girl startled awake, her wide eyes filled with fear, yet she didn't run. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "I'm sorry. I just needed somewhere dry." Title: A millionaire found a little beggar sleeping in his luxury car and took her to his mansion. One day, when he got home from work, he couldn't believe what she had done to his sick wife. Marcus was a man who believed in order and control. His rise to wealth had been paved by hard work, meticulous planning, and ruthless decision-making. His company was among the top tech firms in the country, but behind the closed doors of his mansion, things were falling apart. His beloved wife, Evelyn, had been diagnosed with a rare, degenerative illness that left her bedridden and fragile. She was the light of his life, the only person who had seen beyond his tough exterior to the kind heart underneath. Her illness was a constant reminder that some things, no matter how much money or power you had, couldn't be fixed. As Marcus stared at the little girl huddled in his car, he felt a tug in his chest, a feeling he had not experienced in a long time. Her clothes were filthy, her face pale and gaunt from hunger, but her eyes, they reminded him of Evelyn when she was a child. He hesitated, unsure of what to do next. "I should call the authorities," he muttered, but something stopped him. Maybe it was the rain, or maybe it was the hollow loneliness that had crept into his life since Evelyn's illness. He couldn't send her back into the storm. "Come inside," he said finally, his voice softening. The girl looked at him in disbelief but didn't argue. She stepped out of the car and followed him inside the grand mansion. The mansion was an overwhelming sight for the little beggar girl. She had never seen anything like it: high ceilings, polished floors, and chandeliers that sparkled like stars. Marcus called for one of the housemaids to prepare a meal and some fresh clothes for the girl. But as the maid reached for the girl's hand to guide her upstairs, Marcus stopped her. "I'll take her," he said, surprising himself. He led the girl to a guest bedroom. "What's your name?" he asked, trying to make conversation. "Her name is Sarah," she whispered, her voice almost inaudible. "Well, Sarah, you'll stay here tonight. In the morning, we'll figure out what to do." The girl nodded, but her eyes kept darting around, as if afraid the luxury around her might disappear. Marcus felt a strange connection to her, something he couldn't quite place. She looked vulnerable yet strong, alone but resilient. Later that night, after tucking Sarah in, Marcus visited Evelyn's room. She was awake, her eyes half closed, looking frail and tired. He sat beside her, holding her cold hand. "I found a girl in the car today. She was sleeping in the back seat," he whispered, though he wasn't sure Evelyn could hear him in her weakened state. "You should help her," Evelyn whispered back, her voice a fragile breath. Marcus was taken aback. He hadn't expected her to hear, let alone respond. Her words stayed with him all night. The next morning, Sarah was still in the guest room, dressed in clean clothes, looking less like the street urchin Marcus had found. She was eating breakfast quietly when Marcus walked in. "I've made arrangements," he began. "A social worker will come later today to—" "No." Sarah interrupted, her voice panicked. "Please don't send me away. I don't have anyone. I don't want to go to another home." Marcus paused, caught off guard by the desperation in her voice. He could see the fear in her eyes, the kind of fear he had seen too many times in his own life, fear of abandonment, fear of losing the only place she could feel safe. He sat down across from her, his mind racing. He wasn't prepared to take in a child, not with everything going on in his life. But the words that came out of his mouth surprised him. "You can stay," he said, his voice low but firm. "But there are rules." Sarah's face lit up with hope, and for the first time, Marcus noticed how much she resembled Evelyn as a child. It was uncanny, almost unsettling. Was that why he felt so drawn to her? As days turned into weeks, Sarah became a quiet but constant presence in the mansion. She never caused trouble, always kept to herself, but she spent a lot of time near Evelyn's room. At first, Marcus thought nothing of it. After all, his wife was bedridden, and Sarah was curious. But then he began noticing small changes. Evelyn seemed calmer, more peaceful, on the days Sarah sat by her side. It was as if the girl had a soothing effect on her. One evening, Marcus walked in to find Sarah reading softly to Evelyn, her small hand resting on Evelyn's arm. He watched from the doorway, his heart tightening. There was something more to this child, something he couldn't explain. One afternoon, Marcus came home from work earlier than usual. The house was eerily quiet. As he walked through the mansion, he noticed something strange. Evelyn's room, always dim and quiet, was filled with soft laughter. Marcus stopped, confused, then slowly opened the door. What he saw inside left him speechless. Evelyn was sitting up in bed, fully awake, smiling, her face flushed with color he hadn't seen in months. And beside her was Sarah, her small hand still holding Evelyn's. But there was something different about the girl. She looked radiant, almost otherworldly, as if she was a source of light in the room. "Evelyn," Marcus whispered, his voice breaking with disbelief. Evelyn turned to him, her eyes filled with tears of joy. I feel better, Marcus. I don't understand how, but I feel alive again." Marcus stared at Sarah, his heart pounding. What was happening? He couldn't make sense of it. How could a child, a beggar, heal his wife when the finest doctors in the world had failed? But before he could speak, Sarah stood up, her eyes full of sorrow. "I have to go now," she said softly. "No!" Evelyn cried, reaching for her. "Stay. You're the reason I'm better." But Sarah shook her head. "I'm sorry. I never meant to stay this long." Marcus felt panic rising in his chest. "You can't leave. We need you. I need you." Sarah smiled sadly. "I was only meant to help for a little while." And with that, she turned and walked out of the room. Marcus chased after Sarah, his mind a whirlwind of confusion and fear. Wait. Please, you can't just leave. Sarah stopped at the front door, her small frame illuminated by the fading evening light. I'm not who you think I am, she said quietly. Marcus frowned. What do you mean? I was sent here, she began, her voice trembling. To help. That's all I can say. But I can't stay any longer. My time is up. Sent by who? Marcus demanded, but deep down, he already knew the answer. There was something almost divine about the girl, something beyond his understanding. He had always been a man of reason, of facts, but this defied everything he believed in. I wish I could explain, Sarah whispered. But you'll understand one day. Marcus's chest tightened with emotions he couldn't name. He knelt down in front of her, his eyes pleading. Please don't go. Sarah smiled softly, her eyes full of an ancient wisdom far beyond her years. You don't need me anymore. She's better now. And then, just like that, she was gone. In the days that followed, Evelyn's health continued to improve. The doctors were baffled, unable to explain the sudden recovery. Marcus, however, knew better. He didn't speak of Sarah to anyone, not even Evelyn. How could he explain the unexplainable? But he kept her memory close, replaying their brief time together over and over in his mind. Who was she? Where had she come from? He would never know for sure. But one thing was certain, she had changed their lives forever. As weeks turned into months, Marcus learned to let go of the questions and simply be grateful. He and Evelyn began to live again, their mansion no longer a place of sorrow but of hope. And though Sarah was gone, her presence lingered in the quiet corners of the house, in the way Evelyn smiled now, in the peace that filled their once troubled lives. One evening, as Marcus stood by the window, looking out at the darkening sky, he whispered a silent thank you to the little beggar girl who had wandered into his life. She had been more than a stranger. She had been a miracle. And some miracles, he realized, didn't need explanations. The end.